Moo and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Pinktron. I am Brent Robinson, and I'm joined today by John Keenan. John, what are you drinking?
Gonna kick it off with the mushrooms. I'm going through my Odyssey, trying the beautiful orange can of ginger orange with lion's mane and cordyceps. It's good. I definitely fruity orange. Got a little kick from the ginger. I'm liking it.
Very good. Also, we have Steve Pritchard. Steve, what are you drinking?
I'm on Thatcher's Blood Orange, loving my West Country roots here. I've gone for a smaller can than normal, as I shared to great delight in the Facebook group earlier, which is, very exciting.
So is it
So is
normally
it
like the 710 mil that you got to get?
It's a 330 instead of a 500.
Ah,
It's a stubby, I think our Antipodean colleagues would call it.
I was intrigued by that. Does it also have apple juice that's cider making it, or is it all blood orange?
Dessert apples and blood orange flavor.
Okay.
all
Mostly
right.
apples. That my cider expert wife has just shouted across the room at me. Just flavored with orange.
Yeah, I can't imagine they would call it a cider if it was all blood oranges, but you
Yeah.
never know.
I don't know what that would be. Probably just rotten oranges. All right, we also have Steph Etchen. Steph, what are you drinking?
I'm having a can of Fanta lemon, and I also have a can of Sprite if I need some more.
Very good. And we also have Sean Fogenberg. Sean, what are you drinking?
I would be on the alcohol, but we'll be racing race two, so I'm also Odyssey mushroom drink. This one is the blackberry lemon twist lion's mane and cordyceps.
Nice.
I
Nice.
mean, we have to take our place as the world's #1 online cycling and mushroom drink podcast seriously.
I gotta find it up here. I can't find this stuff. Maybe I think I've seen the mushroom coffee. That that oh yeah, I guess
The
this is
mushroom
like
coffee looks odd. Yeah.
yeah, it's basically like dried mushrooms you rehydrate. Anyway, shout out to
Yeah.
Jeff from the from the Pictron group chat and his journey with the mushroom coffee. I have a Guru Theanine fruit punch. I don't know. We're gonna see. It has natural caffeine. I haven't tried this yet, so if like I drink this and I like choke and splatter all over the thing, I'll apologize in advance. It's not terrible. It's a little bit mm, like Red Bull cotton candy-y tasting, which isn't really my thing. But anyway, it's not
Sounds gross.
the worst thing I've ever had.
I did see a billboard for Red Bull Italian soda recently, and I kind of threw up a little in my mouth thinking about it.
Italian soda.
With like the heavy cream on top
Oh,
and then, fizzy.
I'm with you
Look,
now. That
look
does sound
bad.
That's
terrible.
way too. Red Bull is way too sugary.
Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. And you know what else is very, very sweet? Rachin, Hurt Summer Racing League. And this week's race is on Itza Party. It's a long one, 46.2 kilometers. That is just the whole route. And it is a points race with a mix of mostly first across the line at the first 6 segments, and then fastest through the Mayan mountainside KOM segment, and a finish at the top of, well,
Oh,
The
okay, that's
top
a
It's a
of
bit
Itza
KOM.
confusing,
climb.
but it's yeah, the finish at the top of the Itza climb. It just says that the route is 46.2 kilometers, but the finish is 45.7 kilometers. I suspect that's just a lead-in issue. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I mean, on Zwift Insider, it has the length as 47 or 45.7 when you include the lead-in, so who knows?
in any
Uh,
event,
but the scoring is interesting because all of those FAL points combined are equal to the FTS is equal to the finish, right? So
Yeah, it's
uh,
at each.
and the four FAL points are the Zwift KOM, Titans Grove Reverse, and then the 4 sprints across the coastal road. So there's a couple of short climbs. I have a feeling that those are going to split things up pretty considerably for, like, there's going to be a front group that's going to determine kind of what group you're likely to end up in for those sprints. So the sprints won't be contested as a big bunch, more than likely. But then you've got the choice of like how hard to go on those sprints, because you have the FTS climb coming up at the end of them. So
Yeah, I think
yeah,
we've all raced that hilly KOM, what, 1.9K out of the gate, and it's always just a mad dash, and you get broken up into sorted into your Hogwarts house. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think you'll have to make the decision on the fly once you hit the Mayan mountainside. Like, am I just gonna like get off and switch bikes and wait for that group that's 30 seconds behind me? And
Yeah, especially I guess if you've already gone through all the FALs in the front, yeah, you could just put her into cruise control.
I mean, I think it's a strong candidate for well, maybe not, because a bike switch, because it's not that steep, the Mayan mountainside.
No, it's only 3%.
Yeah.
And if you're in a group, I definitely would not get off and wait for some. But if you're riding alone, like, waiting for that next group might not be the worst idea, because if you're ahead of a group, it probably means you were stronger than them on the earlier climbs.
Right. So you can use the draft for the first half of the climb and then empty it.
I am guessing that you're not going to be there's not going to be a whole lot of higher category groups coming up behind when you're already 40K into the race.
Yeah.
With 2 climbs early.
Yeah.
And it might also be interesting if you're at that front group, if you want to push that FTS, you go straight into the final climb up to the Itza KOM. So yeah, it might be interesting. And also with the points, I see it's how deep you want to go on those sprints. They're pretty separate apart, but yeah, it's 1 point per place, and for the finish and mountainside, it's 6 points difference per place. So that's quite a big jump. So if you're not the best sprinter, if you're a climber, you can do, I think, good on those first 2. The sprints maybe don't have to go all out and make some up some points on those last 2 segments, the FTS of Mayan, and then it's a KOM which also finishes pretty. It starts mellow, but it's finished off pretty steep sections of 10%, I think. So yeah.
And never underestimate your fellow racers who have not read the directions. So I think you could nip a couple of points out of people on the sprints who don't know that it's a points race.
That does tend to be the case.
Yeah. I mean, I've ridden races like this where there's 4 or 5 of us, and 2 of us seem to understand the rules because we're fighting for the sprints.
Well, though I will say on that point, I did HSRL last weekend, and I couldn't tell if the guys that I was racing with didn't know what the exercise was. Hey, let's start with, there's 3 Bs. Well, I think 4 started and only 3 made it together past the first 200 meters. And then I couldn't tell if they didn't understand or they just couldn't beat me because I just won. I won every sprint except for the last lap. I kind of was purposefully trying to just beat him by a little bit to try and save gas for the final sprint. And then he beat me by a little bit because I was being a little too conservative, but then I won anyway. But yeah.
Also, don't underestimate it, since it was 12 laps of downtown Dolphins. People also could like always consider it as a crit race and just wait for the final sprint and don't even bother.
Yeah. Well, I think they clued in by about lap 6 in any event when I kept sprinting up the hill. And so did the C guys at the front who were because we ended up with I don't know if you guys did it last week. I know we're deviating a bit from normal, but in our race, like the C group came right up on us. Like as soon as we like came out of the pen, the C group rode right up on our wheels. And so it was like
Because it
we
was
were right
they
in
had done
That's
their first
nice.
lap.
exactly. They were exactly one lap ahead of us.
That's
And
nice.
and so the front C's were riding with the front B's the whole race basically.
Hmm.
And I mean, I think so, like there was probably about 5 of them that rode up on us, and then by the end of the race, there was only 2 or 3 left, I think. So like they clearly got, you know, some of them got classed out, but it was fun. I don't know, like
Yeah,
I
that
haven't
was
been to like
nice.
a sprint race.
That's a nice timing. Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't think that's gonna happen this one. I think this bees will probably catch this these somewhere between Hilly and
Titans
Titans.
Grove.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe on like the lower slopes of Titans before you get to the actual KOM, frankly. And
Mhm.
then A's will probably catch B's. Well, it depends on the numbers, really. Like if there's only 1 or 2 A's and you got 5 to 10 B's, I don't know they might ever catch them, depending on their
I'm
level.
maybe hopeful is the right word that the front C's can go hard enough, or maybe there are not enough B's that you get over Titans Grove and can maybe get a little bit of a toe through the flats.
Yeah.
But that's also one of those things where that would be that could make the race a lot more difficult because you're then making the decision about whether or not to try and hang on to a group that might be going a bit too fast before getting to the FTS and finish. So kind of that would maybe end up being a like, you know, I'm canning my my FTS points to finish well.
Yeah, and there's really not that much room between the Stoneway sprint and the start of Mayan to like
Yeah.
kind of cruise and wait. Like I mean, I guess you can like literally sit up, but you know, in terms of like just slowing down, there isn't much space there for the next group to come through you. So
Do you think that this is a Tron or full arrow?
I think Tron, especially if you're going to be in groups, because you know you're both Hilly Titans, those are both Tronny, and you know mine and Itza, it's probably 50-50 from Tron to Arrow. Um,
I think that you're you're probably right. I think this might actually be the there might be an argument for that new Canyon Air
oh yeah,
uh,
definitely. Actually, that's probably the answer.
because it's like this is really flat and none of the climbs are actually that steep.
I think
Yeah,
that's
let's
like
see.
the new better than Tron bike. Like it's so
It's
close.
faster than Tron on the flat without giving up too much time on the climbs.
Yeah, not as much as like the Spesh and the
Yeah.
um Felt and the Cervelo. Yeah, I did use that bike last week. Spent my 10 million drops or whatever you needed. I had them. Yeah. I guess in terms of the sprints, I mean, I presume hopefully most people are familiar with Hilly and it's Titans Grove reverse, so the shorter Titans Grove, the shorter, steeper one, the 500-meter kind of 2 to 3 minute guy. Um, in terms of the sprints, Sasquatch is the first one, and it is uphill lead in and then downhill through the sprint in this direction.
Woodland is actually the first one.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
Woodland.
Woodland.
Oh, I'm having trouble reading this.
Yeah. It's a
The lines
downhill
on this.
500 meter.
Yep. And then Sasquatch, which is
Slightly uphill finish.
yep. Yeah. And then Stoneway is no, sorry, Acropolis, pardon
Yep.
me. Goodness.
It's a terrible infographic.
Is downhill, like it's almost downhill lead in and downhill through. And then Stoneway is kind of, I guess it's a little bit downhill to uphill, but then uphill through the sprint for sure. And then it's actually downhill into the start of Mayan, which I don't remember ever feeling that way, but I guess it is. They're all relatively flat. They're not too bad, but definitely there's some uphill downhilliness to it.
Yeah, there are some like you said, Sasquatch has a bit of a kick at the end. I know Stoneway, you start a bit with a kick before, I think before the segment, or either at the start of the segment, but it ends up flat anyways. But yeah.
Yeah, and then the Mayan is 2K at 3%. I can do it in just under 4 minutes, I believe is sort of my PB. So if you're thinking about what your time is going to be through there, that's probably the type of target you're looking at.
I
And
think I
then
did it around 4.5 minutes ish as a mid to low C.
so maybe D's might even if you're in a mid to low D, it might be as long as 5 minutes, but it's pretty flat, like relatively speaking. And there isn't much.
Basically, if you want to do the segment VO2 max, 5 minute power, or 4 to 5 minute power.
Yeah, and there's not much to the pacing to it. I mean, there's a couple points where it's a little more obvious it's going uphill than flat, but not much. I mean, it's pretty much just stay with the pace you're on.
Yeah, it's pretty even, pretty consistent. So you can, if you want to do it by power, so that's a power number, your 5 minute power, your 4 minute power, and that try to keep that in mind. And even if you're with a group, that will probably be lower, since you probably still have, since it's not that steep, still have advantage of the draft, because it's a pretty fast climb.
I would strongly suggest you not try and do Mayan at your 5 minute power, because you've got 40K of race beforehand and then another climb afterward.
Yeah, true. That's what I said. It's tricky, because if you want to do good on that FTS, you want to push yourself, but you want to have something in the tank for that last. It's a KOM finish.
Yeah, I think that's the most interesting strategic point of the race, especially if you're in the front group, is how hard do I want to push this FTS versus how much do I want to die over the last 3.8 kilometer climb?
And I think if you're in that front group, the answer is you just want to do a better FTS than your group and not worry about or like do well within that group while still saving something for another climb, and not worry about how many other people behind you might do a faster time.
Yeah, you might want to do like be off not off the front, but be a bit, when you start a segment, be at the back and try to keep pace, and then just pit them on the line to ensure you beat those guys by time.
That's the the HSRL special.
But if you're racing it as someone who is not going to be in that front group,
right,
I would argue, if there's people 30 seconds behind you and 30 seconds in front of you, just go as hard as you can for that Mayan, realizing that, yeah, you might lose some time to the guys behind you, but that's sort of the equation, right? How much time are you going to lose on the Itza KOM?
Yeah,
you can afford to push it early.
That is actually, I think the correct approach there is if you're behind, you may want to try and go for the fastest time up Mayan.
As someone who races and bargains a lot, 40K into a race, I think that's what's going to happen to me. It's just going to be bargaining about, like, how many people behind me can I forfeit to beat me on the FAL to try to get something better on the climb.
I think that's right. And then I think I've done an Itza Party race. I think it was part of Chasing Yellow, but I have no recollection of what it's like to finish. I mean, obviously I've been through the Itza KOM finish several times, but I have no recollection of what it's like to actually finish a race there, sadly enough.
We also did it in the ZRL Summer Series. It was a scratch race for that. And it was a brutal 12-minute finish.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
the-
remember that
the two
last
climbs.
section, you have a bit of a steep section, but the actual finish ends on a bit of a downhill to flat section where the banner is. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't
you've
leave it
definitely
late.
saved the sprint to the end. That's how it was one of the chasing yellows. I think we did Brent at this finish, and I caught a guy on the climb, and then he just went on that flat bit in the sprint. So yeah, not a fun finish when you've just maxed out on a 8 to 10 minute effort.
Yeah, and I'd try and give you some advice about where the road tilts up, where you need to start maybe thinking about braking. But like I remember, there's a bunch of like cobbly gray stuff, and then there's like some llamas, and I don't
Some
know which part
llamas,
was the
yeah.
worst. I know, I did one race, and definitely where it switches back hard before you hit the cobbly gray stuff from the right to the left, and that's I think the steepest part of the whole segment. But I don't know if you're trying to finish at that line, if you should send it from there. I think that's too far. I think you got to wait till you're into that like last little temple-y bit. I think there is before you hit that max, like kind of about 700 meters from the finish line, I want to say.
Yeah, I feel like this is one that going a little early on that steep bit as you come over the crest.
It's got panache written all over it, hasn't it?
It does, because if you get a gap there, it probably means that you have more in the tank than the person who is chasing you anyway. And then you just have to hold it over a flat. Like once you get over that crest, there's a little dip and then flat. I this was I think it was Justin Curran and I were fighting for the win in that ZRL race, and he got over that crest first, and I had more power in the tank for the finish, but I couldn't catch him on that flat. Yeah.
Good.
Really,
So-
really interesting finish. Really, I'm excited to see how this one does. I don't know. I guess we didn't check whether the race had gone well this morning, and
Yeah, I haven't looked at the results.
it's also a
Race
long,
one.
yeah, like you said, it's
Yeah, it's
46
gonna be over an hour.
kilometers. So I think it's also definitely I think the longest one of the series. So kind of the greenish stage.
wow. So 34 B riders in race one.
What?
Holy 34
Amazing.
on Zwift power.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Oh, the winners were under 115, but the winner on points, Gaffardi, did it in exactly 115.
That's pretty fast for a 46K. Yeah, it's route.
With three
And I
big
guess
hills,
remember that adds the
Yeah.
time that you spend in the pen. So that 115 is actually is it 3 minute?
Yeah, it's a one
yes.
one
That's like a
109.
one. Yeah.
But I guess that's kind of what's interesting. So these times would like if they're showing all the same, that means they were finishing at the line the same, right? Because this clock starts at the same time, right? So like the A's were between 114:52 and there's some 120s and stuff. The B's were like 114 and just under
I
115
think
up to
the A's have are the
120s.
A's and B's starting together?
No, they
No.
So
start
the A's
three minutes
finished 3 minutes
later.
ahead.
No, I think that's what we're saying is the time's added on. So if it says they finished in 115, that's from like the same start
Oh,
time.
yeah.
So
Okay.
they're all finishing in a bunch.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then like the C's were like 116 to one, so they were behind, but they must have come through them and been with them for some time. These are somewhat slower, almost
Well,
90
yeah,
minutes. So if you're D,
it looks like maybe the front C held on to that the AB group for a while.
yeah, but it does look like there was a bunch of A's and B's racing together for a long time,
Yeah.
which is interesting. I guess with a big group of B's, they could hold on.
Wow. Yeah, 34 Bs. When's the last time you saw that?
And 65 total finishes on Zwift Power, I think. that's pretty for an HSRL. That's pretty big numbers.
Yeah, congrats to Michael Scafardi. I raced him a bunch of times. He's a good racer. Who won the bees, by the way. Cool, cool. All right. That will bring us to Herd Beginner Racing, which this
Yeah,
week is
RGV.
RGV. And the top guys are doing 2 laps RGV.
Yeah, the two top bands, so the 325 to 400 and 400 to 475 apparently do 2 laps, and everything below that do 1 lap. Yeah, RGV, one of the classics. Basically, you start with the only bands in France. You do first a very flat bit, then you have halfway through the lap or the route, you have aqueduct. You end up with the intestines with the last kicker at around 1K from the finish. So that's for those 3 lowest categories, and for the 2 highest, you have to do another lap. It's holding on, and I think if you have something if you're not a sprinter, try some panache on that last kicker to create a gap and go in a downhill and keep them off the sprints. But yeah, otherwise sprint to the finish.
Very good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for the two highest categories, it's about, I'm guessing, a 40-ish, 45 minutes per lap. So yeah, it's for those 2 highest categories gonna be a long one.
But it's good training.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, like I guess like in terms of like bike selection, we talked a little bit about this, but that new Canyon is available at level 10. And I know it takes a little bit of time to save up your million drops, but I'm telling you, if you're like around level 10 and you can get up to, I don't know if you get drop bonuses as a lower level rider anymore, but like get that bike. That is an A plus grade bike you can get at level 10. So
Yeah.
you-
I know. We got the previous version of the Air Road was also, I think, until before they moved the levels up to 100. I think it also was in that around levelish time pretty quickly, and it was also one of the best all rounders for
It ac-
for
I
for a
mean,
while.
looking at the Zwift Insider, it says that the old one was unlocked at level 27. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it looks like this is a better bike that is available a lot quicker. So,
just gotta save up your million drops.
yeah.
So give your ride-ons and hope people give them back to you and
Go with your pace
follow your pace
partners.
partners. Yeah.
From memory, I think I got that more faster than that, but still I'm level 27. But okay.
Yeah,
It
I
might
think
have
that initially was like like maybe level 13, and then it
Yep.
like they
Yeah.
switched where it was.
Yeah, for sure they moved it stuff.
Yeah, I know they did it with the increasing of the levels. Now it's like level, I don't know, 37 or whatever. But yeah, I know I got that pretty early on. So it was basically my all-rounder bike until I got to Tron.
Very good. So yep. Thanks to all our HBR riders. The attendance has been good. So we hope everybody's learning up and getting ready for maybe ZRL. We'll talk a bit more maybe about that later. Climber's Gambit this week is Yorkshire KOM reverse ×2. And what's the circuit for that?
It
Route
is
212.
212.
Oh, that's terrible for a circuit.
Yeah, it was about to say you can do a quad bank wall in between between
It's gonna take
your
me
effort.
It's gonna take me 15 minutes to get a pop bank in my recovery section. So the
and
Yorkshire KOM.
again, this is fastest, slowest time.
Yeah.
So you've got your 2 efforts up the climb, and you want to do them both approximately equally fast. That should be a little easier this week than it was last week, where you've got, other climbs in between, and this is you've definitely got like half an hour to 20 minutes to a half an hour to just roll around and get back to the climb. I guess it's probably about 20 minutes because there's like 9K in between, something like that. Um, but yeah, I think this is a TT bike for most of us.
1.2K at 4%, eh?
Uh, yeah. Um, so looking at oh, did I close it? So I was looking at my times on it, and I have done it in Climber's Gambit uh, at like about 30 kph. So that's like 2 minutes 30.
Okay, I've done a 221. Yeah. Okay. All right.
But I could see lower C's and D's. Uh, it making sense to go with an well, that's the thing. Like, what do you ride otherwise? An
Well, and
aero
here's
bike?
Tron or
Tron.
Allrounder, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and the other interesting thing about both both of these parts of it is there is it's not as pronounced as the other direction, but like there's a pretty steep, long downhill in to the into the KOM.
Hmm.
So, part of this exercise is maximizing that speed into the bottom of the KOM and then carrying that speed certainly past the first little steep bit, but as far up that thing as you can. I mean, it's
But also you have a bit of a downhill, but just before the KOM banner, when you turn left, there's a steep pinch where it goes, I think, above 10% at a certain point, right before you hit the actual KOM start banner.
Oh yeah, so it does hit like 14% for a second there. Uh, so your speed does bleed off real quick at the beginning. Um, so looking at my fastest Climber's Gambit effort, I did, even though you hit 35 miles an hour coming down the hill, that little punch right before the start brought speed down to about 14 again. So, and that's with punching up that pretty hard. So yeah, good point, Steph.
Yeah, in the middle it flattens a bit out, and near the top it gets steeper again. I remember, but there is a flatter section in the middle-ish section. First, you have a little bit of a kicker, then it flattens out, and then it goes up a bit. Looking at the profile.
So I could see Tron or a TT working. I'm a bit torn here. I think I'm gonna ride TT, but
yeah. And then I think that is to the pacing part. I think the pacing is like you got to punch it a little bit to get up that first steep bit, and then you got to like not over race it till there's like a right hand turn, a right hand bend before it gets to that last steep grind because it is like quite a bit flatter in that first half before you make that
Yeah.
right hand turn.
it's like 1 to 2% during that
Yeah.
flatter first half.
And I mean,
Yeah.
I've definitely gone too hard on that and then crashed out, like burned out of that top half. So you really want to make sure you have enough for that top bit to get there.
Yeah, and it's I've
And you gotta
tried
do it
it.
again.
Yeah, but it's a fun series. I tried it. Yeah, I wasn't there for the rooftop version, but I was there last week on Silinusker, and that was pretty fun. I
Yeah,
even broke out. And even broke out the Garmin to keep track of my laps and my average power to be as consistent as possible.
maybe that's my trick for being so consistent is that I always just ride with my head unit as well and keep laps of so I have lap power and stuff.
So
Yeah.
you start your lap and end your lap on the head unit?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, now 2 weeks in a row, I've gotten all of my slow times within like half a second of one another.
Yeah,
Crazy.
that's bonkers.
Yeah, you're a pacing king.
I don't think that's happening this week. We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be a lot different with just well, two and like so far apart and everything else.
Yeah. It's TT bike to get back to the beginning of lap 2,
Yeah.
or climb number 2.
No, I'm gonna do a bike swap at the base of Pop Bank.
To a climber.
Yeah, switch
the
to a climbing
helium.
bike for the like 5-minute climb that
Yeah.
should take one.
Well, this was like last week, Brad. What did you have? 5 bike changes for sitting in this?
Yeah,
I
4, I think.
4.
I think Steve was following me up there, and he may have I may have fooled him into doing it the dumb way. And
The dumps.
Yeah, that was really nice. I really love this series. I think, first of all, like kudos to Chris, because I was trying to think why I love it so much. And I think it's because you've really got to think. Like most of us, we've raced in Zwift for a while. It's very rare you jump on and you're thinking like, I'm not sure what the approach is. Like I think we talk a lot about different approaches, but generally kind of like Zwift's a bit rock, paper, scissors, and we know which one we're shooting, right? And with this, it's kind of like, oh, I don't like how long can I hold that power? How fast should I go? And with this climb, it was like, well, actually, I don't think I need to go that hard on the climb, the second climb, to be faster than my time at the first climb. But do I take a gravel bike just in case? Do I do a bike swap just in case? And yeah, I did the bike swap just in case, and then didn't have my Zwift plays going, so didn't realize I couldn't stop at the top, having gone up the second climb. So it had to change. It was rolling down. I'm like, well, I might actually roll through the con banner and be change and just be doing it on this bike. At this point, now it's going to be Tron second attempt. And eventually rolled to a stop on the roundabout and changed bike. But I don't know whether that's cost me the 1 second that Steph managed to beat me by or not. But yeah, it's just really cool series. I think it's as I say, just the fact that it's got you thinking so much about what the tactics are, how much to rest, how much can you sustain in this effort. Yeah, it's really cool. So big up Chris, and let's all go back to being mean to him next week when he's back.
The only thing I'll say is like my race last week was the ultimate. You're talking about like the didn't read the notes. You could definitely tell the guys I was racing had no idea what
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
and even I think I commented on like I think I messaged the whole group before the race because Steph and John and I were all there. And so we were telling people like what the race is, and they were still like off the front, like at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I didn't even start, like I didn't even start on time. I was messaging the notes into the messenger and the race started. I'm like, oh, I guess I should start pedaling.
Well, I wonder how much people read the notes then. I've done a couple of the Zwift analogy, whatever the Zwift hill climbing club race thing, which is the same scoring paradigm, but they built into it bots. I mean, they go crazy fast out of the gate, but the bots basically sit in the pen and auto spit out
Bombard
the
you.
rules. So every minute, it's another like big block of text with all the rules. And so
Well,
by
and
the if you're there 3 or 4 minutes early, you've read this thing like 8 times and you kind of get it in your head.
I will say, in fairness, I'm about 95% certain those two guys do not speak English. So
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's another hurdle.
I find it quite entertaining because I think there were 3 or 4 other C's in the race Sean and I did last week, and they must have been thinking like, what are these two guys doing? Like, I couldn't pedal slower than Sean was, so I'm doing like 1.4 out of the gate, just warming up. Sean's doing 1. We both then hit it on the first climb, and I'm pretty sure we catch about 2 or 3 riders by the time we're at the top. Sean then stops.
Yeah, how many people stop in a race? That's crazy.
That's too high. It's 2 people fly past, cruise back down. Then we hit it again on the way back up and catch these 2 guys back up. So they must have wondered what we were doing. It's really funny.
Yeah, it was about it. I was saying it to John and Brent were on Discord. It was saying if the people of the organizing of the club that's organizing are doing like 1.2, 1.5 watts out of the gate, there might be something special I think we communicated. They asked if it's just a climb. We said yes, but I think I don't know if some. Did you communicate it with Brand that it was slowest time, or because that even makes it more complicated than everything? But
I said something about it. I don't know if I got it as clearly as I would have liked in a more timely fashion. I think I
yeah,
said it's your slowest time up the combine all four climbs counts or something like that.
And that was
So
a race with somebody said it was their first race on Zwift, right? Like,
yeah.
that's a tough one, buddy. I'm sorry about that.
So it's a
If you're
bit
thinking
niche.
of race and you just race and the first one across the finish, that's not this race.
Yeah. So this is a bit niche for your first Swift race, but
Yeah.
good job. All right, that brings us to theoretically mountain goats. I'm not sure there will be a course. Last week I think was Climber's Gambit, but anyway, I don't know what they're gonna do this week.
We'll talk about it later, but don't anyone let Steph plan Mountain Goats courses.
Which brings us to our Stampede World Tour is off to Japan this week. We are doing one lap of the Neon Flats, which is most of the roads in Nyokyo, I think. And it's basically flat. Yeah, I guess it doesn't do any of the rooftop. So yeah, it's just all the flattest bits of Nyokyo. So 15K should be right around that 20-minute mark for most, especially like slower A's, faster B's. C's will be just over 20. I could see potentially like slower D's getting into the mid to high 20s, but
25-ish, yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, 40 kph for that is going to be about 22 and a half, 23 minutes. So you can
Yep.
usually base things around that.
Yep. So fastest arrow, full arrow, and like just try and hit that target 20-minute power a little bit more or less depending on where you're at. Just give her. There's not really any magic to that. And that will bring us, that's it for the week of herd racing.
Yep.
Bullseye just keeps rolling around.
What is next week's HSRL?
It's
it's
confusing, super
yeah,
confusing.
it's basically a version of the tiny races. It's short scratch races. One is 4 laps of Glasgow reverse, and one is up mountain mash.
And they're like a
Interesting.
set time
Okay.
apart, and you have to enter both. Is that
I don't
okay?
know.
We'll find out. We should maybe
Maybe it's not. Maybe I don't know. It's something like tiny races where there's. Yeah, I don't know because tiny races is like 15 minutes apart. But how they're gonna do it
there
now,
is
now
some
with these timing?
there is some computer logic. You have to finish all four of the races to be put in the
Yeah,
final thing for the tiny races. So
yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we get Marjolein on next week to talk about how this series has gone and what actually we're doing next week.
yeah, what she learned from it, because it was a very varied series.
It is, I mean, we've talked about what the other types of races and stuff that we would like to see, and I do like seeing these little series in the series that we've done a bunch of times where we actually have to race things differently.
Mhm.
So it's not just, well, it's an HSRL, so I'll sit at the back of the pack and punch through the pack and like just do all the segments. That's not necessarily what this series of HSRL has been. So
Mhm.
yeah, interesting. And then the Climber's Gambit as well has been
Yeah.
nice little experiments.
And also
Agreed, agreed.
potentially, I don't know if it's for some, if it's still correct for HBR, it might be uh, some amount of laps of fan flats.
Mhm.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, watching the track racing at the Olympics has made me wish there could be even more flexibility in the race styles at Swift. Like that elimination race was so interesting. I wanted to watch. I
Uh,
was like, man, I wish we could do that.
so Brent, maybe this is maybe we try and get a group of us to do an Indy Velo race, because they've got a velodrome and all of those race types already like native to the platform.
Is Indy Velo free to race?
Yep, it's in beta, so you have to sign up for the beta right now. But
Wow. Well, we might have to talk about that. I think for Around the Horn today, what we have planned is, if you've been following ZRL or anything, you will have seen that the sixth race is a contest where people can enter their custom race route, and I guess they'll pick the most interesting one or something like that for race 6 in ZRL. And did this tool in Zwift Maps exist before? No one was using it, or no one was talking about it, or
yeah, basically it's been there, but like for the most part, like what's the point of it? Because it's not like it will direct you in game.
yeah.
I was gonna say there's no functionality to load this into my Zwift account and ride that route yet that we know of.
No. So
yeah,
this is actually the best use case for it, I think.
Yeah.
I mentioned it to James Bailey, formerly of this parish, and he agreed it would be very well received by the community, but thought that the chances of implementation were quite low of the ability to plot your own routes. And I think it's not on the roadmap in the immediate future, I think would be their phrasing on it. But yeah, what a cool feature that would be, even if it was just for race organisers to be able to draw your own route between predefined points. Like, so if they said you can drop a pin, like with this tool, it's like Strava, you can drop a pin anywhere it routes in between. But if it said, right, you can go from this banner to this next banner, and then you use the banners effectively as waypoints, and it says there's a predefined way of getting from A to B, and you could choose those. That would be cool, wouldn't it? Just to have different routes, unless we let Steph have the controls, in which case it would not be cool. It would be horrible.
Well, I would think
I basically missed the point of the entire competition.
Well, I think if you were doing the tool, would it not just be like a series of like cue points at the turns? Like it would just be
right. Like that's
at each turn point, you would be left, right, straight. I think that's the only options that any of these have. So, I would think
and many times I can't figure it out. What's left and what's straight? Like, no, the straight's really the left.
So there's always this weird quirk in Zwift, isn't there, right? And we'll all have seen this in races. So there are certain points in a race where everyone on the leaderboard will disappear because you go into a zone. So Zwift is clearly built on segments. You'll go into a zone which is between two segments. So suddenly the guy that was 30 seconds behind you disappears completely, and you see somebody 8 minutes behind you, or you see actually the front of the race, which is suddenly 7 minutes ahead of you, but still somehow behind you. So I think this is my guess is there's something that Zwift is built on that kind of it's built on segments, and I don't know whether you load a bit, like the server just handles a little bit and says all these people are in this sort of bit, however it works. And my other guess is that that's made it quite complicated to do all these custom routing things, that kind of like there's a certain logic. There's only one way into a certain segment, and that comes from another way. And if they started saying that you could do this however you wanted, it would just break Zwift. But it's, yeah, you'd think, as you say, there's a logic of go forwards, left or right, or even turn around at the roundabout in the desert would be really cool, wouldn't it?
It would be cool. All right. So Around the Horn is we've all taken a look at this tool. We've all coming up with custom routes. Maybe not necessarily ones that we would propose they actually do for number 6 of Swift Racing, but that we thought might be interesting or fun or whatever. We're gonna start with Steph. Steph, you go ahead.
Okay. Should we finish with Steph? Because I think Steph.
Yeah, maybe the Queen stage.
Steph last. All right. We'll go Steph last.
Okay.
So I'll actually start with James responded last week with a route on last week's post. So you had mentioned right after we recorded and posted the thing, you were like, well, and we missed the announcement that this was going to be a thing. And he posted a route in Scotland that started kind of up in the non-city start pens. Comes down, does a reverse lap of Glasgow, heads up toward the top, toward like Breakaway Bray, and then finishes with the roadside of the Sker. So it's like a summit finish, but yeah, so 18K, 140 meters of climbing, like yeah, interesting little route. I think that Brent and I both had a similar idea, but maybe a bit more difficult versions of that.
Yeah, mine was like out of those, let's call them the Scotland pens. To the pavement side of the Zgur, down, take the little cut back, breakaway reverse, cut back across, do the castle side of sort of the uphill coming up block loop, and then into Glasgow with Glasgow reverse ending at Champions sprint banner on the reverse side, essentially. So I thought that would be interesting. It would break it up enough potentially early, but lots of time to maybe chase on and that kind of stuff. I hadn't really thought about segments or anything, but you had a much longer one.
Yeah, I had a similar idea, and then I actually realized that the way that I had it drawn out probably wouldn't work in Zwift because of the way that you can actually get into Glasgow. So what I wanted it to be was you start in the Glasgow pens, go up the gravel side of the Sker, turn left, come back down, go back into Glasgow, and do Glasgow forward. Go up to the top, do the breakaway, come back, do the Sker roadside, and then do Glasgow reverse and finish at the top of the climb banner there, which I think that's an interesting finish point because it does have again, that's a panache spot. So this route would have a split early with the gravel climb, but then there's that balance between how hard do we go to try and stay away because there's actually fairly long for the rest of the race to go on, and then like a panache spot for the finish with the steep part being a few hundred meters from the actual finish banner. But you couldn't actually I don't think you can actually do that. So I just switched which the reverse one was first and then the forward second, finishing at the Clyde kicker. And I put together one more that is a Makuri one. So they have the sea to tree route. I call this actual sea to tree. So start down at the Mech Isle pens, on the ocean. Do the little Mech Isle climb, and then the other a bit longer. I don't know what you call it, the Shisa climb.
Shisa climb. Yeah.
Come back down and then climb up the cave, or not the cave, the canyon climb. Stay to the right once you get up to Umazi. Do one lap of that little castle crit. So you actually go through, you do the castle crit, and then do the climb to the tree. So actually, the whole route there's a couple little climbs, but the whole thing just kind of goes uphill to the finish. But none of those climbs are actually super hard.
Except the temple finish.
Except the temple finish.
On dirt, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a 6-minute climb. It's not like that's yeah.
So I went old school. I had 2 Watopia-based ideas. One was sort of a climb, reducing punchy climbs, as it were. So you go out the marina, you hit the volcano, you then head up Epic, but just the beginning little bit of Epic, turn left on the bypass, come back through Titan's Grove, finish back in the marina. So
nice.
That's a good one.
Have a 10-minute climb, maybe a 5-6 minute climb, maybe a 2-minute climb, reducing climbs chance to go up. But then I thought, because what I was looking for is similar to you, Sean, break things up a bit and people come back together. how do you break things up a bit? You put a big downhill in at the start. So wouldn't it be great if you could start at the top of the Alp, and instead of a tour of fire and ice, you do a tour of ice and fire. So you start at the top of the Alp and you race to the top of the volcano. So you've got the big guys they are gonna go at the start, and then you've got the little climbers who might have a chance to catch them at the end. And if you thought that wasn't the volcano's not climbing enough, do you go sort of down and then up a bit or something like that? So unfortunately, not possible with it. The first route actually used proper start pens. The second one was just being daft. And
I mean, the pens were there, right? So
I probably spent far too much time with this, and then I started thinking, well, what is the point of a race? And I think I distilled it down in my mind to some form of like a little bit of, especially if you could make it points incorporated into it. So like the second one you were talking about, Sean, where you were doing that castle crit.
Yeah.
Like come out of the pens, do a couple of castle crits, and then do some climb, like maybe temple or well, that'd be the only one that you could really do, and then do like a sort of a crit in the village onsen, although it's not a segment. But that's where I was like, oh, it'd be good if you could do a couple of segments and a crit, and then a climb, and mix those up. Climb first, climb second, whatever it is, or come back and do one more lap of the crit, and then wherever your banner is. But that's the part I couldn't really figure out on the maps. It doesn't show you obviously where your endpoints have to be. So that'd be one thing to improve on that app.
Yeah, you just gotta kind of know where they are ish.
Yeah.
Good, good. And then yeah, the other one I mean I did do some. I did come up with I think the one thing that's a bit underused in Zwift actually is circuiting and like laps and stuff. But I did come up with one on France that would be 2 laps of Petit KOM essentially. So you'd come out of the Marina banner, up Petit KOM, back down through the balloon fields, back over to Petit KOM, back up Petit KOM, back down through the balloon fields, and then take the right when you came out back by the marina there, and then do the flat pieces, and then end at Pave Sprint. You could extend a little bit, ended it.
So doing the TKOM, the side that is not a segment.
No, I think it's both on the segment side, right? So
wait, the balloon.
Right.
So to do the segment, you have to go through the balloon field first.
And the intestines first, and then the balloon fields of the PT KOM.
Oh, that's the segment side is over there.
Yeah.
Okay, then that's reverse direction. Pardon me.
It's still, I mean,
KOM reverse. Same thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then you could end at the top of the aqueduct even on that route. If you came back down, went back
you could either
toward
end
it,
at Aqueduct or Pave.
Yeah.
Depending on what kind of finish you want. I put it at Pave because my thinking was, especially if you did it with like segments, is you do the first time through as first across the line, which I guess I know I could do if it's not segment, but anyway, first across the line at then, and then the second time through you do FTS, which would incent the people who won the climb the first time to kind of cool their jets. I guess you couldn't do it that way, but anyway, that would be the idea, to cool their jets. And then, you know, if they beat everyone else everyone else who's on the flat bits for the next downhill and 20K, to try and catch the guys who won the climbs. So that would be the idea, to try and, I don't know how long you need to like make those catches and stuff, but that would be the idea, is have this long flat stretch. If you can get people to work together to try and see if you can pull back the climbers essentially, then have a race to the end. So, all right, just
Steph, how do you want to kill us?
Or are we going to Steph?
Do we even want to explain it?
All right, Steph, let's have it.
Okay, basically, I'm disappointed I created the most craziest bonkers thing in Watopia. So, short version: start at the downtown pens in Watopia, up hilly KOM, then Titans forward, a longer climb, volcano, epic KOM with the radio tower, back down the grade. Let me see. Itza and Mayan Itza combo with the upper part of the grade, go downhill epic KOM, then epic KOM reverse, back down Itza and Mayan. The ending is up the grade, up a final section of Epic KOM. Again, up the radio tower, where reverse it, down Epic KOM forwards, Epic bypass, something through the jungle, up Alp.
Oh God.
And again, a loop through the jungle, and finishing with great
The
upper
full
portion
grade.
of Epic KOM, finish on top of the radio tower. Basically 195 kilometers.
And it is, you just need another 1,000 meters, and it's an Everesting.
I don't know if that elevation is correct, by the way, but
I think it is.
I don't think it's 7,000 meters.
I think it is.
Wouldn't
The
count
Epic
as an
is like
Everesting, would it?
600-ish, 500, 600.
Could
And
be.
how many times have you done the Epic? Well, and the radio tower. I don't know if that's a big elevation, but
It's not
and then-
zero.
yeah, it's not zero, but yeah, I like that you can finish at the top of radio tower. That makes it an interesting. We haven't done any of those races yet. It's a segment, right?
For this, oh, I guess it is now, right?
Yeah, because they just
forgot.
made it a segment.
Yeah.
I haven't ridden it since it's been a segment,
I
which
haven't either.
might tell me something, but
I'm dubbing this the and Swift, hear me out. The final stage of who gets a pro contract for the Swift Academy. Final race.
oh yeah.
Well, it would take as long as a pro race.
Yep. It's essentially a Tour de France Queen stays on steroids on Zwift.
It's like the Four Horsemen.
Except it's like 6 horsemen.
It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like it's what killed the Four Horsemen, maybe.
it's the Three Little Sisters and Four Horsemen and the Four Horsemen's cousins.
Yeah, I like it.
On
It
the
starts
radio.
out so tame. It's like, okay, so I'm gonna start with the Three Little Sisters, and then tag on the hardest race I can think of.
For fun.
And for everybody who's wondering, I will share the Zwift map link. You can share it
Right,
on the
Steph.
post, and
Steph.
people can look.
So when you were doing your like bike vacation, what was your longest ride day, and how many meters of elevation?
I think 100. It wasn't the same route, but the hardest, I think it was 103 kilometers and about 2,300 meters of elevation.
Okay,
This is like double that.
double that plus another couple thousand meters. Yeah.
I was just trying
fun.
to see what the craziest thing I can put on.
Oh,
Yeah, I
on this
mean-
tool.
You might get really sick of the grade by the end, or the grade and Epic, but it is really fun that Watopia is now big enough that you can put something like this together, and it doesn't actually feel like, oh, I'm just doing the same climb over and over again.
Well, you do the radio tower 3 times, but
Okay.
but you do each time. My first option, not including the radio tower, was just trying to make like an 8 figure of 8 or something like that, where you do basically every side of the Epic and grade sides, which you can do now without touching any of the coastal roads or the jungle. Avoid that.
Well, then you throw in there that you can do points, right? You can do different FALs or FTSs on all those segments, depending on what your brutality interest is.
Yeah, because there will be more than one person in the race with you.
That might be optimistic. Yeah.
Good fun, good fun. Yeah. So if you're in the comments on this post, you should leave us your suggestions to the route. Let us know if you put it in as a entry into ZRL, and we will be very curious to see what the new custom route is for the finish of ZRL for this season. So, and as I go into the thank yous here as we wrap up, I'm going to say first thank you to Phil Smythe, who I know is listening because he was listening last Friday when I was finishing. I did the welcome ride for Zwift Academy, and afterward I finished the top of the grade because it was 30 minutes in whatever route ending up the grade. And he's on the grade riding, and he says, "Right now I am riding on Zwift, and I'm listening to Brand on the Pinctron, and I see him riding." And it was like a bit of a like mind-blowing moment. I'm sure like the other 100 people who could see the comments are like, "What the bleep is he talking about the Pinctron?" But for the two of us, it was very cool. So
Yeah.
thank you to everybody listening at home. Thank you to John Keenan. Thank you to Steve Pritchard. Thank you to Steph Jen. Thank you to Sean Fogenberg. Thank you to everyone doing all the herd races, especially the 35Bs coming out for HSRL on a Friday afternoon, evening. And moo and good night.